in terms of why I did the entire course, I would say is because um, Q90 is effectively you getting no question wrong, right? In And to get no question wrong, you basically have to leave no question and no stone unturned, right? You have to ensure that all your topics are like very strong, right? But for somebody like me, that in all those many hours to quant perhaps don't make sense, right? So to have this lever that basically helps you fine tune your preparation so that you are spending lesser hours but still touching all concepts. I think that's key. By far the best part about e-GMAT for me were the sectional mocks, right? So Scholaranium has sectional mocks, and they were amazing because you ideally would want to be doing is every 3 days you're taking one sectional of the section that you are not actively working on. I think the one thing that helped was your advice on basically how to fix the weak areas, because I had not worked on fixing my weak areas in that manner before that, I would say.
So, hi Rishabh, thank you for being here. And to all of yours here, we have Rishabh, who got a phenomenal 725 with a brilliant Q90, a V84, and a DI84 with us today. So congratulations, Rishabh. Before we move on to this journey of yours, would you want to tell something to our viewers about yourself?
Yeah, thank you, Rashmi. I'm Rishabh. I've been working for about 5 years. I come from a typical engineering background. I work in the tech startup space at the moment. Yeah, that's about it.
Got it. So it has been quite a journey, right, Rishabh? As in when you came on board e-GMAT, you had a 655 with you, with a V82, Q86, and a DI79. So clearly the areas that you had to focus more was on verbal and DI. And it has quite a journey from there, 2 attempts, and finally 725, the Q90. So looking back, when you look at where you were at, what were your major challenges to get to this time of history?
Right. The biggest challenge I would say was verbal. Verbal, I was getting about 8 to 9 questions wrong. May be mocks, maybe the actual paper that I'd given before. Right. And within verbal, reading comprehension was definitely something that required work because I was getting questions wrong. And again, I was being pressed for time as well. So that was one area that I knew I had to fix. Like off the bat, that's something that I knew that this needs fixing. In terms of quant, I knew, coming from having an engineering background, of course, we have this chip on our shoulders that, we can and we probably can get a Q90, especially because that's what you see in most of your OG mocks, that, you're getting these Q90s and somehow on the test, it's not happening. So I knew that, that improvement is possible, and getting a Q90 definitely, kind of overpowers your score in a way to compensate for certain things. So I knew that I have to cover this gap as well, and this will definitely help. And with DI, I guess, just the general timing, I guess. I had to fix my timing. I had to look at different question types, and DI was mostly unexplored at the time when I had given my first exam. So I had to look at it from scratch in a way, and fix every area, barring I think DS, which was fairly strong. So yeah.
Got it. So, of course you self-prepared when you got that 655, then you came on board e-GMAT because we wanted a more structured approach to really make the final bump, right? And we'll talk about each of these sections where we want data insights, but I think we have to start with the hero of the story, which is a Q90, a perfect Q90, which is getting all the more elusive of late, right? So, Rishabh, you when you started with e-GMAT, you already had Q86, right? But I know that you did the entire course. You went through the concept files, you went through the process skill files, the GMAT skill files, you did cementing, you did sectional mocks, you went the whole mile. Okay, so what made you want to go this full mile and not be satisfied with the Q86?
My ego, mostly. But yeah, and that's true. Like jokes apart, that's true to some degree that if you come from an engineering background, that's definitely something that you constantly think about. That in a pool of a fairly diverse pool of applicants, you definitely want to have a Q90 because
Mhm.
this is something that you can get to far more easily than perhaps your contemporaries and who are trying for the same thing. So
Got it.
that's one thing. That's one thing. But then, in terms of why I did the entire course, I would say is because um, Q90 is effectively you getting no question wrong, right?
Mhm.
In And to get no question wrong, you basically have to leave no question and no stone unturned, right? You have to ensure that all your topics are like very strong, right? If you're
Mhm.
struggling with word problems, if you're struggling with probability, you need to sit down and make sure that at least whatever the GMAT scope of such problems are, you're covering them and you know them from the ground up, right?
Mhm.
So the idea was to basically ensure that I know everything there is. Uh, there's nothing I don't know effectively. Yeah.
Got
So for that I basically covered the course, and I can go on to but I would definitely say that was not enough in a way, right? Because ensuring a Q90 comes down to a few more things than just knowing everything. Because um, the way it works and the way we've been conditioned
Mhm.
through the OG mocks is basically that most like the 21 questions are not very tough. At best, you'll get one tough question which you probably will be able to figure out because you finish like you're doing everything else in what 30-32 minutes, then you have 5-7 minutes, 10 minutes remaining to figure out that one question that you don't know, right? That's not going to happen on an exam day. On the test day, there'll be pressure. There'll be more than one question that will bother you,
Mhm.
and you need to have a strategy on how you tackle that. So this is something that changed from my first attempt to my second attempt in terms of post getting e-GMAT. So my first attempt was a 715. I think I got a Q86. I don't quite remember, but I
Mhm.
got three questions wrong. The story of those three questions wrong was that I got two questions wrong in between, and then the last question I missed was because I was short on time.
Mhm.
Now the question was how you fix it. So strategy is simple. You go through the entire paper, and if there's a question that's very tough, you try it once. If it works out, well and good. Basically, if you're able to match a choice, well and good. If not, you just quickly reread the question, you recheck your calculation. If you see that you've done everything right as per your understanding, that's when you mark and move. Because at this point,
Mhm.
you don't know what you did wrong. So going in again is effectively you spending about 7 minutes or so on that question with no guarantee that whether or not it'll give you the correct answer at the end of the day. So you basically effectively skip that question. You go through the entire paper and then you come back to it. Why that's very important is because um, GMAT will probably punish you for missing an easier question far more than it will punish you for this. And with the knowledge that there are a few experimental questions that are thrown in the mix, and this question quite very well could very well be that question, right? So with that knowledge, effectively the idea is to not get stuck on any one question. Just go through the entire thing and come back to these questions at the very end, right? One more thing that I would want to stress upon at the same time was that during whatever prep that you're doing, I'm sure you will be able to figure out that certain areas you're relatively weaker on, right?
Mhm.
Weaker at. For those areas, what I would recommend is just doing the hardest questions possible. Because again, it's about you're probably going to get the medium and easy questions anyway. To get a Q90, you basically need to ensure that any question that's thrown at you, you're able to get right. And there are going to be 2-3 hard questions. And if it just so happens that a hard question comes from a topic that you're weak at, then you're stuck, right? So you need to just do hard questions for those couple of weak topics that there are, and you could have 50-60% accuracy, and that I think that's all right. Just as long as you are understanding the approaches that are being taken, so that on the
Mhm.
actual exam day, you know how to navigate such questions. So
Got
that's
it.
effectively what I did between the 715 and the 725. that I just worked on a couple of quant areas, which I felt were relatively weaker. And yeah, that's about it.
Got it. So essentially what you're telling is three things. One, read notes, two, and turn, right? Work on your test taking skills, know when to let go of a question, how to manage your overall time, and work on those tough questions. It's essentially, sweat during the practice so that you don't bleed during the battle, right?
And not to get by the OG mocks quant scores
Yeah.
that you're getting. Please don't.
Yes. Yes.
If you're getting a Q90,
that might not translate to a Q90.
Yeah, they probably won't. Yeah.
Yes. So now coming back to, you did the entire course, you used P.A.C.E extensively for somebody starting out at a Q86, right? I'm sure there were a bunch of strength areas, there were a bunch of weaker areas. So you leveraged P.A.C.E heavily. As we were discussing, you saved 48 hours of your quant prep, which is phenomenal. I would say, I don't think I'll be wrong to say that you saved more time than you actually spent on the prep, right? So how useful was P.A.C.E in trying to, because as you said, your major areas of improvement would come from verbal and DL. So I'm sure the time saved through was really helpful in verbal and DL. How effective was that? Is my question.
No, definitely it was very effective because if you look at everything at the entire course from scratch, right? And for somebody for whom quant is not the strongest area, perhaps the entire course makes sense. But for somebody like me, that in all those many hours to quant perhaps don't make sense, right? So to have this lever that basically helps you fine tune your preparation so that you are spending lesser hours but still touching all concepts. I think that's key, because my goal was touching all concepts, making sure the hardest questions and hardest concepts I'm covering in the least time possible, of course. So because again, I had spent a fair amount of time on quant before I had taken GMAT. So I did not have to, or I did not even want to go through everything, because it would have been very repetitive for me. So
yeah, it's not necessary, right? I just want to share the screen, your algebra screen, where you saved close to 17 hours due to P.A.C.E. So essentially what you did was you took those two diagnostic quizzes and basis your scores there. You were asked to skip certain files. And the more I see your progress, I see that your concepts were strong. More often than not, your concept diagnostic quizzes were 100%. But the area of improvement was the GMAT skills, wherein essentially taking the knowledge that you had and translating it into being able to solve those hard questions, right? That along with Rishabh, you were saying the scholarly and the sectional mocks played a big role in getting you here. So do you want to take us to that?
Yeah, definitely. So I think I've told this. I've told you this before as well, that by far the best part about e-GMAT for me were the sectional mocks, right? So Scholaranium has sectional mocks, and they were amazing because while you're preparing for verbal and DI, and while you're focusing on your weak areas, you basically don't. And this is very critical in your last 2 weeks of preparation, or last 3 weeks of preparation, that you don't want to lose touch with quant. Right now, and that could be true for any section that you're targeting. You could have a strong verbal, and you're probably working on DI and quant. So what you ideally would want to be doing is every 3 days you're taking one sectional of the section that you are not actively working on. So I think that's something that the Scholaranium really helped me with. That I was constantly being able to stay in touch with quant while not actively working on it. So and the questions were pretty good. So I think again we've discussed this, that the quant questions, the level of quant questions on e-GMAT are fairly challenging. So it's not like you're just doing 21 questions for the sake of doing 21 questions, but you're doing fairly tough questions and you're coming across concepts that you're probably missing. So just for disclosure, right? Full disclosure, right? I was getting 2 to 3. 2 questions wrong, 1 question wrong, 3 questions wrong. I think getting 1 question wrong was probably my best performance mostly on the quant scholarinium of e-GMAT. So it is fairly tough, but again, it is preparing you for those 2, 3, 4 questions that are going to stump you on the exam day. And that is effectively what I wanted to ensure that, I'm not doing. So yeah, for that,
So basically weed out every area of weakness in the space.
Yes, yes.
Okay. So I think, quant was there. Coming to verbal, you said that was your biggest area of concern as you set upon getting the 700 plus score, right? And you mentioned RC being the biggest challenge. So what was that challenge in RC and how did the e-GMAT curriculum and the course help you in it?
I think my biggest improvement in RC came from my reading style, right? I am not quite sure what I was doing earlier, to be very honest. But whatever I was doing, it involved rereading the sentences and rereading the sentence right after I just read it. Right, I read it and I go back and read it again, and then I'm probably say the first paragraphs of most passages are fairly tough, right? You need to spend a little time on them. So I would effectively read the first paragraph and then go back and read the entire thing again. So there's a lot of rereading going on here. And a lot of times I was not comprehending the entire going on in the RC. It would happen far too often. So I think those were my major challenges. What changed? I'm again not very certain. It could just be the volume that I just kept on doing it, and perhaps it struck me one day. But effectively, in the approach, if I were to tell somebody what to do, is to read slow. Once you read slow, what you're ensuring is that you're not going back to read it again, right? I think in some part of e-GMAT, we've basically broken down a passage into different components. So it's a phrase, then a sentence, and then a paragraph, and then a passage. So if you read slow, you're basically getting that phrase and then sentence right. And then once you're getting that right, good chance you get a mini like by the end of the paragraph, you know what you've just read in that paragraph. What I would do at this point, and this was somewhat of a conscious exercise. I would not write anything. I would just make a very quick mental summary in terms of what just happened here. Like what was the author trying to do in this paragraph, and then basically go to the next paragraph, follow the same process, and make a quick mental summary in terms of what the author was doing in this paragraph. What this helps in by the end of the entire passage is your main point, which is definitely a question that you're getting in RC. You're able to deduce the main point by stringing together all the mini summaries, basically, right? That's one. The second is there are a lot of even if you're not getting what's going on, it helps to know which direction the author is taking the passage in. Very simple, is it going in positive or negative direction? If there's a thesis, is he going in the positive direction of it, or is he going in the negative direction of it? Just having that sense also helps you understand the passage far better. And this is very critical for passages where your general comprehension becomes very low. So just following that, this is getting positive, this is getting negative. This is something. This is a thesis the author is defending now. Becomes very critical. So knowing how that flow of the passage is definitely helps you in figuring out what's going on, especially in cases where it's a very typical RC and you're not able to figure out what's going on. And I think that would happen to me even today. I would just feel far more calmer today tackling that passage, because I know that I tried my best. I've tried to figure out as best as I could. Now I'm working with whatever limited understanding I have, and more often than not, I would still get the questions right. If I go through the questions, I would still get them right. So I think that level of comprehension should be good.
Yeah. It is reading comprehension. If you comprehend, you should be able to solve, right? And and what you said essentially boils down to the whole principles of master comprehension, where you learn how to read consciously, how to read slow, to read fast, and the reading strategies as to how to draw linkages, right? Understand what the author is trying to say, summarize at every paragraph level, draw linkages, and then your 90% of the battle is won. Then it's all
Yes,
about understanding
definitely.
what the question is asking and then just answering that.
Yeah,
So,
I think even I was talking to some people on Reddit, and they were the question was basically that, how do I optimize my time on RC? And I think what we discussed, that holds very true, that you can take your time while reading RC. You don't need to rush through an RC to read it under 3 minutes. I think you can take 3 to 4 minutes for a medium length RC, and then maybe over 4 minutes for a relatively longer RC. But then comprehending basically ensures that you're getting questions right under 1 minute. And for inference question, that holds true very strongly. I remember earlier when I was solving inference questions, I would often go back. I would often verify each option, and that had changed. I would not have to do that once I comprehended the passage better. So yeah,
exactly. Comprehended, and I think trying to get inside the skin of the author. Like, why
yeah.
is he saying that? Why is she, contradicting herself? That preempting and pre-thinking also helps to a large extent. Now coming to DI, right?
Mhm.
You mentioned your biggest problems in DI were not GI, DA, or DS because inherently strong quantability, these areas were covered. Problems were with TPA and to some extent MSR. And there's a high correlation between verbal and TPA and MSR, right? So how did really working on your verbal skills really jump up? Because it's a huge improvement. 79th percentile is where you start out for DI, and finally 84 is a 97th percentile. In terms of points, it might seem a 5-point improvement, but in terms of percentile, it's a great jump.
Right. So DS for sure was a strong area for me, given that I had worked on quant some time back, and I had taken DS along. So that was definitely a strong area. But again, that's not to say that there was no scope for improvement. I was still getting like 1 or 2 DS strong every once in a while in mocks as well. So I think just sheer numbers helped me there. Again, the thing with DS is that there are like it's rare you'll encounter a DS that is completely off pattern. A lot of DS fit most patterns of work distance, and they're very you will see certain patterns, certain types of questions. So just doing the volumes there will help you be fairly good at it. So DS was all right. TPA was a problematic area for me. So just focusing on that in isolation helped. TPA quant. So TPA has two types. One is the one two-part analysis are of quant type. The other one are verbal two-part analysis. So quant was easier to figure out. Right, it was effectively a quant problem. So I was able to improve on that fairly easily. The TPA verbal was again a skill that you need to develop. Right, you just need to get exposed to as many questions of TPA verbal and see how to crack them over time. So yeah, I did all the questions there were in the question bank, and maybe some more just to be sure that I'm getting it right. So yeah, again, I would just say, working on that part in isolation will help and will help you improve on that front. Um, Graphs again, graphs is also fairly typical. You just need to isolate, work on as many graph problems as possible. And I think that will improve. I'll get to how graphs are in today's paper, but generally graphs should be all right. In terms of MSR, I think prepping for MSR, I was fairly good at MSR. And to some degree, the calmness again while attempting MSR came from my improvement in RC, because that translates right. Once you get a little calmer, a little cooler while reading huge chunks of text that and when you're on the clock, it'll definitely help, because when you read it in a hurried manner, your comprehension goes down by a lot, and you'll have to come back to check it again, and that will end up costing more time, and your comprehension will still not be up there, right? So generally being calm during like reading huge chunks of text is a skill that will help you across sections. So I think I was doing fairly well even in my prep during MSR. What happened on the exam day was something that I had not expected, and that did not even happen on like in the 715 attempt. That did not happen. I did fairly all right on the MSR bit. It did cost me a lot of time. Yes, I would say that. But I was able to do well. In the second one, both my MSRs were really tough as per my standards. They were fairly tough. I still managed to get one of them right, and one of them I did not do quite well on. But what I would say is that I honestly still haven't cracked how to get MSRs, like how to get bulletproof in that area. I jokingly, I think even that it would take me another attempt to figure out MSR. So yeah,
Well,
with MSR,
you know
that's
who
a
to come
journey.
back to if you want to take one attempt.
Sure, sure. So
Yeah.
yeah, but the one thing that there is like, but I think from my earlier attempt, what has now changed in the format is that we are assured of two MSR. So we should definitely work on getting our MSRs right. That's one thing, but we should also kind of be prepared that you can expect a curveball on the exam day. So try to be as unfazed as possible when you encounter that weird MSR. That's one. And the thing with graphs and tables is that they are typically now shifting towards the end of the paper. So if you're doing well throughout your paper, good chance you're going to get fairly tough graphs and those graph and table analysis questions. So I think we had discussed this some time back as well, that the approach, and given that it's going to be the last section, you're probably going to be short on time as well. So I think the approach that I would take if I were to attempt it again would be that choose your questions. Uh, like you can see through the questions, you can choose your questions and spend your time. Probably see all the questions first. That would help. That if you're getting stuck on one question, probably go on to the next one and see those questions, because you're probably not going to get all of them right if you're short on time. So you probably want to get as many right as possible, and for that you have to probably see all the questions. So perhaps that, yeah. So that's something
So
that's
you're not looking for 100% accuracy, so you have to optimize your time and get those questions that you know you will be able to solve timely, and then come back to the rest of it.
DI is fairly forgiving in terms of its percentile and the questions you get wrong. It's not like Quant that you get one wrong and you're at Q86. You can get 4 or 5 wrong and you're still getting a fairly high percentile. You're getting a DI 90, like you're getting a DI 99. So you can afford a question or two in that entire thing. But again, if you're short on time, then these are the tricks and methods you might have to resort to. If you're not short on time, then
Yeah, the world is realistic. Mhm.
yes.
But yeah, so Rishabh, coming to, you and I have a personally through the last month push program, right? And you were already at a good place when you joined the program. But tell me, how did this personalized mentorship really help you get to where you are?
I think the one thing that helped was your advice on basically how to fix the weak areas, because I had not worked on fixing my weak areas in that manner before that, I would say, wherein just focus on like figuring out the weak areas and then working on them. That was, I would generally work on high level ideas that this part seems weak and now I'm going to work on it. But I think and that's something that I had not even explored of the e-GMAT dashboard, that you can go and look at all those statistics and basically figure out that which part you are relatively weaker at. So singling out those parts, I think two part was one of those sections that I think you had highlighted to me, that it's relatively weak, you still need to work on it, and that had worked on. So that approach of basically figuring out the weak parts, working on them, and then basically and then going to give the paper, instead of just getting a couple of good boxes and just going to the exam day. I think apart from that, one more anecdote comes to my mind, which I think was my which happened during my 715 attempt, which was perhaps one of the better tips that if people can know about it, would be able to use. And so what had happened was, and my first learning of this happened during one of my mocks. So I was doing fairly well on my mocks. I'd taken, I think my last,
675.
yeah, e-GMAT mock, my last e-GMAT mock was a 735, and then I took a break, worked on a few things, and then I gave my next e-GMAT mock, and I had a 675. The reason for my 675 was because I had screwed up one section, and then I'd screwed up my quant section, and this will typically happen with people who are relying on one section more than the others. I'm sure you can go in with all three strong sections, but you definitely have a strong preference towards the section. Once that kind of you get questions wrong in that, and specifically with quant. With quant, you know you've gotten the question wrong. You know that Q90 is out of your reach now. That kind of takes a hit at your morale, right? And at that point in time, you're basically left with that. Is this attempt no good no more, right? I might as well just go back home because I got 3 wrong in quant. No matter how good I'm probably not that good in verbal and DI. No matter how good I do at either of the two, I'm probably not going to get my dream score. So, what's the point? So you kind of have this defeatist kind of an attitude at that point.
You
So
sort of
this
forget
happened.
you have 3 strong legs. You forget it at that moment.
Yeah, and you get kind of unhinged at that point. And this happened with me during one of my mocks, and I discussed this with Rashmi as well. That my quant did not go as planned, and this kind of messed with my mind, and I did not attempt verbal and DI in a manner that I would have liked. I was preoccupied, right? And we talked through that. It's all right. I think Rashmi told me about many people as well that who've had poor quant, a poorer quant performance despite having a strong quant, and then they've recovered in verbal and DI. And I think this is exactly what happened with me on my 715 attempt, wherein I got stuck with 2 extremely tough questions. They were I think, consecutive questions, and did not figure out either of the two. Spent a lot of time on them, and then I was left with very less time for finishing the rest of the paper. Somehow I sprinted and I managed to get to the last question with about 40 seconds left. And I could see that, it's an easy question. It was something to do with eliminating a few cases. I didn't eliminate case 1, case 2, and basically then you have to take the answer. And I eliminated a couple of cases. I was yet to eliminate a couple more cases. And the time was going to get over. So I just marked and I moved on. And I was completely shattered at that point. I was like, damn, I've gotten 3 questions wrong in quant. Good luck with a 705 or 715 score, getting a score like that. But yeah, I at that time I took the break. I went out. I think I washed my face twice, thrice, and I came back and I just relaxed myself and gathered myself. I had seen this before, and I was like, what? Let's just give it my best shot. So I think calming yourself in between, I think there's no preparation for that, but I think just keeping in mind that, it can still work out. And I think it worked out pretty well, to be very honest. I gave my verbal.
You did better in verbal than quant.
Yeah. Exactly. I got 2 wrong in verbal, which was a surprise. I mean, my last attempt I had 8, and this is 2 wrong in verbal. So that was amazing. And DI was also went fairly well. I think it was DI 98 or something. So, I think long story short, you can recover from any point, right? No point in getting bogged down by one bad section. And if that section is quant, you can expect the unexpected, because it might just be a bad day and you might just get questions that you can't figure out. So don't get too down. You can probably still recover. And having that 715 definitely helped, right? Because I knew that, this is a good enough score.
You had your safety net.
Yeah, exactly. This is a good enough score. I can happily apply with it. So yeah, it definitely helped.
Yeah. I think one thing I want to add here, when you said not doing well on a section, you still have 2 more sections, you can still recover. That happens if you have a all-rounded preparation. Preparation is focused on just optimizing one section at the cost of other 2, then this is not going to work, right? If you're just focused on quant, say, then not doing well on quant, how will you expect your verbal and DI to push your score on?
I remember my early, way back when I was giving, I think last year when I was giving my mocks, I was getting constant Q90. And then because the DI question bank was relatively small, so the same OG questions were also out on GMAT Club and wherever, right? So you knew the pattern there. So you're getting a Q90 on Quant. You're doing fairly well on DI because you're familiarized with the questions, and your verbal is not going so well. So I was getting a 735 with like 9 questions wrong on verbal. That's because both of the other two sections were were very good, right? And this kind of sets wrong expectations. This setting you up for failure. This is basically you go on the exam day and you're done. Quant is not as easy. DI is absolutely different, and verbal was anyway weak, so I was not banking on verbal. So that will happen if you're basically going with a very known weak section. So I think we need to strengthen all three sections before we're appearing to
Yeah.
to be confident.
So it's a tripod, right?
Mm.
A tripod is no longer a tripod if you take out one leg. And that's where, we at e-GMAT stress that verbal minimum 82, quant minimum 84, DI minimum 80. That is when your tripod takes shape, right?
Or,
Anything
yes.
lower than that, it's ifs and buts. And ifs and buts don't get you good spin.
Yes.
Right. But it is amazing, right? You finally you did 2 attempts, 715, 725. And the reason you took the reattempt again was you were like, ego. Why didn't I
Probably,
get a Q90? And you made it to a Q90.
among other things, yeah.
Yeah.
Among other things, yeah.
Yes. But tell me, what is it that differentiates a 700 plus score in terms of mindset on the test from 655 mindset?
Not really. Didn't really get that question. No,
So
I mean mindset in terms like I get my score rated.
What I want to ask is, what makes that top score? I'm sure there is something about how you approach the test that also makes a difference. Like you said, right? When it was your previous attempt, your verbal was very weak. This time verbal was strong, and that gave you the confidence, right? When your quant didn't go well, you were ready to bounce back. You still had 2 phases to go. So what makes that difference? I'm sure there is something that is different between a person who scores whatever
So
700 plus score.
I was terrified of verbal on my 655 attempt. Going into that paper, I was terrified of verbal. I knew this was not a strong area, right? So I was attempting verbal first, and basically it's like you're playing a cricket match, and you're 3 wickets down already while you're entering the field. So that was my situation with verbal. I kind of knew that it's not my strongest area. I'm probably going to falter, and that's basically. And with DI, I did not know what to expect. With Quant, I was confident. Then I was confident later. With DI, I did not know what to expect. I was just hoping it will go well, right? So, and I was in for a shock once I gave my DI. I was in for a shock because I gave verbal DI Quant, and what I realized is like verbal, I did not know what happened. That's how my verbal section went through. DI, I screwed up my DI. So I kind of knew it at that very moment that, and going with that confidence into Quant again did not help because you had 2 very poor sections. And again, I did not know how to deal with that, like 2 very poor sections, or you go into the third one. On the ones, as opposed to when I got my 715, when at that point in time, I think I was not afraid of verbal quite as much. I was not. I was like, I'll figure it out because I had I had consistently done well up until that point on verbal. So I was fairly certain that maybe a question or two wrong more than what I'm getting, but it's not going to be terrible. So it's going to be it's going to be manageable. So that was my approach on that day, and so is the case with DI. I think a lot comes down to your familiarity with what the exam is about and how well you are at different parts, right? And you have to put in the effort for that, right? If I'm poor at verbal, I need to work through everything, right? I need to know I need to put in the hours to know how good am I, to get good at it. The thing about being bad is that you'll be bad and you won't exactly know why you're bad at it. You'll have to put in the work to understand, okay, this is where I'm wrong, and then you'll improve there, right? So I think that was a situation like that had changed when when I'd given the second attempt.
Gosh, you're way more self-assured, and having spoken to you around that time, I can say that. I'm very
Sorry?
confident. I'm saying you're way more self-assured when you're serving kind attempt. And that makes a big deal of difference, really. So, Rishabh, it's been a journey, as I said, while we started the discussion. So, if I were to ask you, if you were to share your learnings, and I had to ask you to share 3 learnings that will help other people who are still struggling with GMAT, what would those 3 be?
I think in terms of the prep, I think I've said more than enough. More than like that. That's all about I have, right? In terms of different sections, how to approach different sections. I think at this point, if there are any tips, I would just want to give about the preparation journey in general, because I think that's one part we've not discussed. And I think this time, this GMAT preparation time can be like huge, like very isolating. You can get really lonely because unlike say your maybe when you're in your 11th and 12th and you have this huge friend circle. You're basically all aiming towards the same thing. So you have a study group, or you have basically everybody knows what you're doing. When you're doing GMAT, you're probably not telling your employers. You're not talking, like your friends cannot relate. So perhaps having a GMAT, if you have a GMAT buddy, if you don't, probably go find some on Reddit. The mini, you can find it like GMAT buddy there. Basically, somebody to talk to during this time. It will be an isolating time. It will be a tough time. So that's one. Find a buddy if you can. Find somebody to talk to. Apart from that, one thing that there is, like, during your preparation, don't take too long breaks. If you have if you're preparing and if you know your journeys, like say you've taken a prep course, so you're probably like, I'm 3 months, I'm committed to the prep course. One, we're gonna do mocks and whatnot, and then I'm gonna pay for the paper. So these 4 months don't take long breaks. A week is too long a break. Maybe 3-4 days you take weekend and a few days off. Or maybe you have a tough office days, like you have a tough office week, so you take 5 days off, and then on the weekend you get back to it. Don't take too long breaks, because it's like 2 steps, like 1 step forward, 2 steps backward kind of thing. You will lose that momentum, and momentum is very important. So during preparation, try to stay as consistent as possible, and don't lose hope. I guess there are far too many people like you and me who are just grinding it out, right? It's taken me, like, this GMAT was about 4 months, and I had prepared even earlier. So it takes time, but rest assured, I think like we all get there. I think as long as we keep at it. Yeah.
So it is a lonely journey.
Oh,
be consistent, and success comes to the one who perseveres, right?
Yes.
That's I think that's brilliant. So I think you've just encapsulated the entire journey very, very well. And thank you so much. It's late in the night. You've taken your time out to do this. Thank you so much. It means a lot. And I, from the behalf of the entire e-GMAT family, will wish you all the very best for the upcoming journey that you're going to set out on, your applications, your LORs, your interviews, and all that stuff. And we are all rooting for you. See you at the end. So, thank you.
Thanks for Rashmi. Good night.
Bye.